My parents forgot my wedding because I was getting married before their favorite daughter. But now all the relatives are upset with them and won't attend my sister's wedding. I'm 28 years old, and I got married 8 months ago after being in a relationship for over 5 years. Everyone attended the wedding except my parents and my sister, who is too sick. It didn't surprise me that my sister didn't show up, as we've never gotten along anyway. I extended an invitation to her out of courtesy and politeness. However, my parents' absence was a shock. It's no secret that my parents have always favored my sister over me. She's always been better at practically everything. She's definitely much more conventionally attractive than I am. I'm short and a bit chubby. While she literally looks like a model, I'm not exaggerating. If I'm not mistaken, when she was in college, she even dabbled in modeling and participated in a few projects. But then she focused on her career and gave it up. She has a business degree, and right after college, she landed a job offer at a major company, quickly climbing the corporate ladder. She's young, beautiful, and successful, and my parents have always been prouder of her than of me. To be honest, I don't blame them for that. She's the daughter they can brag about. In comparison, I'm pretty ordinary. I don't deny it. I don't have her looks or her intelligence. I'm not putting myself down. I'm just being realistic. Although I'm not as accomplished as she is, I'm quite happy with my life. It used to hurt that my parents weren't as proud of me as they were of her and didn't make an effort to show me the same kind of love and affection. Over time, I just accepted it. There wasn't really another option. I did everything I could to get my parents to treat me the same way since I was a child, but nothing really worked. It's like they were obsessed with my sister, and I was never going to be good enough. So why bother trying to impress people who simply weren't going to see the good in you and would only compare you to your sister? Eventually, I stopped trying and found peace with it. I started living my own life, and I must say my life became much happier after that. Still, I kept in touch with my parents because I didn't want to create any drama. I knew they were very conscious of keeping up appearances, so if I suddenly stopped talking to them and cut them out of my life, they'd make a big fuss about it. I didn't think the drama was worth it, so I chose to be there superficially, but aside from that, I kept my distance. They didn't seem to care much either, as they had my sister to obsess over. That's how things had been for the past few years. Then, last year, I got engaged to my long-term boyfriend. Of course, I told my parents all about it. I even invited them, but they didn't show up. It's not like I missed them terribly at the wedding, but it was still a bit shocking because they hadn't even confirmed their attendance. A lot of people asked about my parents. No one was surprised that my sister didn't show up, as they knew we didn't have the best relationship. But my parents' absence was a big deal, especially without any explanation. A couple of days after the wedding, I decided to ask them about it. Even before the wedding, when I noticed they hadn't confirmed, I tried reaching out, but they didn't respond. At the time, I thought something was off, but I didn't dwell on it because I already had a lot on my mind. After the wedding, however, I really needed answers, so I decided to confront my parents once and for all. When I called, they finally answered, though I thought they'd just ignore me as they had in the weeks leading up to the wedding. As soon as they picked up, they said they were very upset because they couldn't attend the wedding and started claiming I should have sent them a formal invitation. Obviously, I was very confused because I was certain I had invited them. My husband and I meticulously reviewed the guest list multiple times to ensure no one was left out. We sent physical and electronic invitations, and I knew for a fact that my parents had received one when they said they were upset because I hadn't bothered to send them an invitation. I knew something was wrong. As they went on about how insulted they felt, I decided to check whether I had actually sent the invitation. Sure enough, I had. I knew they were trying to manipulate me, but I didn't say anything. I simply apologized for my mistake and hung up. Obviously, I was very upset because they were trying to make me believe it was somehow my fault, even though they had deliberately chosen to skip my wedding for reasons I didn't even know. After that call, I talked to my husband about what had happened and how my parents had tried to manipulate me. He told me he was pretty sure they were just upset because I was getting married before my sister, and that's why they chose to skip the wedding. Now they were trying to make me believe I hadn't invited them as an excuse. It was actually my husband who made me realize they were upset because I was getting married before my sister. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but then he mentioned several examples. First, when I called my parents to tell them I was engaged, they didn't seem happy at all. They seemed quite shocked, but I assumed they were just surprised that I was informing them, given our somewhat cold relationship. That I called them before posting about it on social media because I thought it was my responsibility as their daughter and that it would be more polite to let them know. My husband said he immediately noticed they weren't happy. The expression on their faces wasn't one of pleasant surprise. He didn't mention it to me at the time because it didn't seem important. It was at the engagement party that he saw my parents sitting in a corner instead of socializing, clearly unhappy. When he tried to talk to them out of courtesy, he saw they were on the phone with my sister, and he could hear her crying on the other end while they tried to console her. You don't have to be a genius to figure out why they weren't thrilled about my engagement. Although my husband couldn't hear what my sister was saying, he could make a good guess. As soon as my parents realized he was nearby, they put their phones away and started pretending, but it was too late. I was quite shocked when I found out about this, but a lot of things started to make sense. It was only after the wedding that I learned about it. I'm pretty sure this was the real reason they didn't attend the wedding. It's not possible they didn't receive the invitation, especially when I checked everything multiple times. After they didn't show up to my wedding, I decided I was done talking to them, even for the sake of appearances. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I heard from some relatives that my sister is engaged. Apparently, she's been with this guy for the past year. He proposed, and she accepted. I'm happy for her. I know my parents are going all out for this wedding because they've been bragging about it online. They've already talked to some friends and started looking for huge, expensive venues. That my sister has been telling our cousins she's going to buy her dress in Baragwan, and I know it's going to be a massive event. I didn't care much, but a couple of days ago, my parents reached out to me. They said it was very cruel of me to try to ruin my sister's wedding. That I had no idea what they were talking about. I also told them I didn't care because we hadn't been in touch for a long time, and I wasn't interested in fighting with them now. But they said they knew I'd spent the last 8 months after my wedding bad-mouthing my family, and they were very disappointed in me. They said that all the relatives they'd spoken to so far showed absolutely no interest in attending the engagement party. Many had already started making excuses not to attend the wedding. They claimed they knew for certain I had something to do with it because my sister was very upset that our family wasn't going to her engagement party. She vented to one of our cousins, who told her that, apparently, I'd been telling everyone in the family that my parents didn't attend my wedding because they were upset that my sister wasn't getting married before me. According to my parents, I made it seem like they favored my sister because she's prettier and more successful. They accused me of making them look bad. Now, because of my supposed accusations, our family was hesitant to attend the engagement party, let alone the wedding. They were somewhat right. After the wedding, there was a phase where, whenever my relatives asked why my parents didn't attend, I simply told them what I thought, that I was very upset with my parents and their behavior. After what my husband told me, I didn't think I needed to stay quiet. Whenever I ran into a relative at a family event and they asked if I'd finally gotten an answer about why my parents didn't attend my wedding, I told them the truth, that in my opinion, I didn't think I was gossiping or doing anything wrong. It was the plain truth. As far as I'm concerned, My parents were always very concerned about appearances but couldn't be bothered to show up for my wedding. For them, protecting my sister's feelings was more important than anything else that I had learned my lesson. I wasn't going to make an effort with them anymore. After what my husband told me, I decided honesty was the way to go. At the time, I didn't really think about the consequences. I thought people deserved to know the real reason my parents didn't attend the wedding. Besides, I don't know why I'd have to lie to people who asked. What I didn't realize was that the information spread. At this point, practically the entire family knows. They also know it's because, for my parents, my sister is a higher priority. Plus, they tried to manipulate me into believing I hadn't invited them. My relatives have now decided they don't want to attend my sister's wedding and don't want anything to do with my parents. The cousin who told my sister all this had been listening to her talk about it for a while. This girl is quite gossipy, so I'm not surprised she decided to pass that information to my sister and parents. I'm pretty sure she just wants to see how the drama unfolds, and she's lucky because my parents are very upset. They think I sabotaged everything on purpose. They also believe I'm jealous of my sister, so they think I spread these rumors to make them look bad. They said my husband made up the whole incident and that none of it happened. They even accused me of not inviting them on purpose to have an excuse to gain sympathy from relatives and make them seem like villains. That I don't agree with any of that. I'm pretty sure my husband told me the truth, and I'm also certain I sent them the invitations. What does make me feel a bit uneasy is that, because of what I told my relatives, they're now choosing not to attend my sister's wedding. That was never my intention. So, am I the bad guy for telling my whole family the reason my parents didn't attend my wedding? Edit. There are several reasons why I don't get along with my sister and never have. The biggest one is that she always tries to belittle me. It's not enough for her that our parents already prefer her over me. She needs me to be very aware of it all the time. I don't know what her problem is, but since childhood, she's always tried to rub things in my face. It's not like I didn't know. She was much more successful than me when we were kids. She was always at the top of her class, good at sports, and quite popular. That should have been enough for her, but for some reason, she went out of her way to make me feel bad with her sarcastic comments, subtle jabs, and things like that. She even had her group of friends, who were younger than me, and they tried to bully me every day. The only reason I never made a big deal out of it was because I didn't think they were important enough to address. At worst, they were just a minor annoyance to me. I found them irritating, but I didn't care much. As for my sister, I really thought she'd eventually outgrow this childish habit, but she didn't. She continued behaving the same way, making jokes about me, throwing subtle jabs, and so on even into adulthood. It got to the point where I literally stopped going to places because of her. I don't want to create drama. I'm a person who avoids confrontation and doesn't enjoy interacting with people I don't like. I just try to stay away from them completely. So, in recent years, I've only attended family events when absolutely necessary. For smaller gatherings, I usually avoid them just because I don't want to see my sister. So, yes, that's why I don't get along with her, and I don't have any regrets about it. It's not like I didn't try to get along with her when we were kids. I really did. But at some point, you realize that's not the kind of person you want in your life. That's the kind of awakening I had with my sister a few years ago, and then again recently with my parents. The only reason I maintained these relationships for so long, despite the pain they'd already caused me, was because they were all I had as family. Sure, I have my relatives, but it's not the same. However, now I truly believe my relatives are probably more my family than these people ever were. Update 1. I started ignoring my parents after reading the comments here. I realized that telling the truth to the rest of my family wasn't as bad as they were making it out to be. I simply shared my side of things, and I shouldn't feel bad about it. When they started texting me nonstop, I decided to respond and tell them the same thing. That's when they started arguing with me, accusing me of doing this on purpose, of wanting to ruin their image in front of the rest of the family, just because I've always been jealous of my sister. We were talking on the phone. Before answering, I had already decided in my head that this time I was going to let it all out because I really needed to vent today. As soon as they accused me of being jealous of my sister, I just agreed. I told them that, in fact, I was jealous of her, but not for the reasons they thought. I wasn't jealous because she was more successful or more attractive by conventional standards. That I was always jealous because, instead of being impartial, they always preferred her over me. I could understand the rest of the world choosing her over me for the reasons I mentioned, but my own parents? I was tired of pretending it didn't bother me. Things like this affect people, and expecting me to just ignore it and act like everything was always fine is completely unreasonable. But I did it because I always hoped that at some point my parents would start valuing me for who I am. That never happened. Even when I wasn't consciously hoping for it, I was still unconsciously expecting them to value me in some way. That's why I kept quiet about their terrible treatment of me for so many years. But now, when I was finally speaking up, they had a problem with it, just because it made them look bad. Well, too bad. And if they think the truth makes them look bad, then maybe they're the problem, not me. If they wanted to seem like good parents, maybe they should have been good parents, and then I'd only have wonderful things to say about them. But they gave me this ammunition themselves, so now they have no right to complain that I'm making them look bad. That if I want to tell my relatives how my parents have treated me, how they always chose my sister over me, and make it a big deal, then I absolutely will. Instead of calling me over and over to try to get me to change my story, maybe they should try talking to my relatives and convincing them they're not the kind of people I made them out to be. Maybe that would be a more productive use of their time. Talking to me won't get them anywhere because I've already said what I needed to say. If my relatives have decided to believe me, then good for me. The bottom line is that I'm not going to fix the situation for them, that I'm not responsible for anyone's reputation but my own. My parents went silent, probably because they're not used to this kind of behavior from me. As I've mentioned, I'm a person who avoids confrontation and is pretty quiet and introverted. So an outburst like this wasn't something they expected. They probably thought I'd let this slide too, but I was tired of being walked over in the hope that maybe they'd value me someday. After a couple of seconds, my parents told me that since I had already decided they were terrible parents and had such strong opinions about their failure to raise me the same way they raised my sister, they had decided it was time to let me go, to part ways. Up until now, they had hoped I'd fix the situation because they thought I was family, their daughter, and that I'd at least care. But now it was clear to them that I was happy they were suffering. They told me they no longer had any expectations of me and that I was free to live my life as I pleased. They wouldn't bother me anymore. They ended their little speech by saying that, at the end of the day, we were both their daughters. Maybe I only felt they always preferred my sister over me because I was the insecure one. According to them, that wasn't their fault, and I shouldn't blame them for it. Even at the end, they couldn't accept that part of this was their fault. They wanted me to be the villain. It took a lot of effort to keep my mouth shut, but I didn't say anything because I knew it was pointless with them, and there was no sense in continuing the argument. I didn't want to end up talking in circles. That if they wanted to make me the villain, that was fine with me. At least that would keep them away from me. Now that I've made my point clear and told them how I felt all these years, I feel much lighter and better. Whatever happens with my sister's wedding or anything else is their problem, not mine. I'm just going to focus on my own life. Update 2. A couple of days ago, I had that conversation with my parents. Today, my sister texted me, saying that what I told my parents was very wrong and that they were very upset about it. She went on to say that they raised me, did everything for me as parents, and that I couldn't just turn my back on them and say they hadn't been good enough because, according to her, that was very ungrateful of me. She was acting like she was the most righteous and virtuous person, pretending to be the epitome of grace and dignity, when she's anything but that. And I knew she was enjoying this opportunity to put herself above me. It really annoyed me, so I didn't even bother responding to her message. I just blocked her. I thought that would be the end of it, but a couple of hours later, my husband called me to say he'd received a message from an unknown number. Sure enough, it was my sister. In her message, she basically said the same thing she told me. Then she had the audacity to tell him he needed to convince me to apologize to our parents because what I was doing was really wrong. She even added that, as he's now part of the family, he couldn't just stand by as a spectator and let these things happen, especially when, in her words, it made me look like a complete fool. I was furious that she had the nerve to text my husband, but he found it absolutely hilarious. He thought it was funny that my family really believed texting him and asking him to convince me to apologize would work. Thanks to him, I was able to find it funny too and let it go. Otherwise, I might have really lashed out at her. In the last few days, I haven't told anyone what's going on with my parents, that I haven't had time to talk to most people because I've been busy with work. However, if someone asks or if I run into someone, I'm going to be very open about it. I'm sure that's what will annoy my parents the most, that I'm not usually one to gossip, but if this is making my parents unhappy, then I'm all for it. The best part is that it's not even gossip. I'm just telling my side of things. I don't even have to make anything up. I just have to tell people how my parents have actually behaved. That's enough to make people not like them. The funniest thing about all this is that, even though my parents already know I'm not going to stay quiet anymore or protect the family's reputation by keeping silent, they still go out of their way to make things worse with tricks like this. Update 3. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and my parents have started telling everyone in the family that I've been spreading false rumors about them to make them look bad. According to them, I've been doing this just because I'm jealous of my sister and can't stand the idea of people actually attending her wedding, since it's going to be much bigger and more extravagant than mine. I'm pretty sure they thought the strategy would work, painting me as the villain and all, but most of our family members had already decided they were on my side. To be honest, I didn't even have to try. Many of them already felt that my parents spoiled my sister too much, even when we were kids. So my version of events was much more believable to them than any narrative my parents tried to push. Plus, what kind of parents don't receive an invitation to their daughter's wedding and don't ask about it? It's clear to everyone that the invitation was sent, and that was just an excuse from my parents. Many relatives have told them that, and I didn't even have to say anything to them. Instead of just believing my parents, several relatives came to me and told me what my parents had been saying behind my back. And well, their whole plan backfired completely. Now people are laughing at them and their foolishness along with me. This is karma at its finest, and I'm really glad they chose to show their true colors to everyone. It's been quite satisfying to see them face the consequences of their actions. Update 4. My sister's wedding has already happened, but since practically no one we know attended, I can't give you any details. What I can tell you is that one of my uncles decided to host a barbecue that day, and almost the entire family got together. Having a family event where my parents and sister didn't attend was a very interesting experience that I hope there are many more gatherings like this in the future because it felt so good. No drama, no arguments, none of that nonsense. Just a family eating, having fun and enjoying life. Although I didn't attend my sister's wedding or know much about what happened, I can guess how it went. The passive-aggressive posts about me and the rest of the family don't suggest it was a great party. Quite the opposite. When I got married, even though some people didn't attend my wedding, I didn't post anything about it. I just enjoyed the moment. If you need to badmouth other relatives indirectly, making accusations about some people not attending because they prefer to go to a simple gathering, it means it really bothers you. But so far, no one has reacted to those posts, and that's fine. I end my experience. The best thing is not to keep feeding this issue. Update 5. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and my parents were invited to a relative's house who decided to host everyone this year. But instead, they chose not to attend. They said they already had plans to spend the day with their real family, meaning my sister and her husband. This relative told them that was fine, but they shouldn't expect any more invitations in the future, to which my parents replied that they didn't expect any either. Does that mean I won't have to see them at Christmas either? I don't know, but if that's the case, then there won't be any more updates from me. I think this sums up my parents' stance on all of this.